All right, class, here we are getting ready to start discussing our narrative unit. So what I would like to start with this lesson is using 6+1 writing traits and focusing in on specifically organization. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. All right, so when we talk about organization, when we organize a piece of writing, we have to put our thoughts together in the right order so that everything fits together like a jigsaw puzzle. And one of the things I noticed when we did our diagnostic pieces is that all students need assistance when it comes to organizing their thoughts. Some of you all are great writers, but the piece that you're missing is putting it in logical order and making sure that it's a coherent essay or narrative piece. All right, so let's talk about the different components of organization. So first, when we're writing our narrative piece or any other piece of prose, we want to have an enticing lead. So the first sentence should really grab the reader's attention. It should be engaging, and there are different ways to do that, and we'll talk about those in a little bit. Also, when we talk about organization, it should have thoughtful transitions between paragraphs. One paragraph should set the scene for the next and link ideas. Should also have a logical sequencing of information. There should be a systemic approach to the topic. Should be controlled pacing from start to finish. Details should be provided in the right amounts, and obviously we want a satisfying conclusion. So it should have some type of meaningful ending to your narrative as well. All right, so when we talk about organization, oftentimes there are patterns of organization. As a writer and as a reader, we have to be able to identify and use these patterns of organizations as we see fit based on the piece of writing that we're doing. So one type is cause and effect. Another type is order of location. It can be a spatial pattern organization describing what something looks like, describing where it is in the room or where it is outside or on location. Then there's a chronological order telling the events based on when they happen based on time. And then you have main idea and supporting details, which is kind of self-explanatory. You have your main idea, the focal point, and then the supporting details, which further elaborates or supports that main idea. And then lastly, a pattern organization is order of importance. Looking at what's significant and discussing those things of significance first, of importance first, and then followed by things that are least important or less important. All right, so here are some questions that help you organize your writing. So one, you want to ask yourself, how does my paper begin? Looking at, is this engaging? Is this really going to pull my reader into my story? Did I also tell things in a certain order? Is it constructed logically and in a certain order that the reader will be able to understand? Does everything link to my message that I'm trying to get across? And then obviously asking yourself, how does your paper end? Does it really pull everything together? Is there some meaning or message that I'm actually getting across to my audience? All right, so let's look at an example from The Outsiders, and we're going to look at how this author starts this particular novel and looking at the pattern of organization. So take a minute, read this first paragraph. So you might want to pause the video and actually take a look at that there. And the second paragraph here. Let me back out so you can actually see it. And so you can have probably a better look like here for the second paragraph. Okay, so what did you notice here in the first paragraph and as well as the second paragraph? One thing you should have paid attention to was the fact that the author or the writer here is describing their feelings. They're using a lot of imagery here. They're describing what some people look like. They're also giving you very descriptive language. Now, second paragraph here, We're going to back out so I can zoom in here. So here they're using a sequential order. They're talking about what happened after the movie, what happened on their long way home, um, how they're feeling, and giving you information about their family. So it's a combination of sequential order as well as order of importance as well. So we can use this as an example of how we may want, or one way one could actually start their narrative. And we'll look at some others in some other videos. All right, so here are some strategies for a great opening. One, you want to set a setting. You can use the setting details to describe where the story takes place, to create some type of mood. You can also use a description of a major character. We'll look at that in another video. Or you can do a snapshot of an important moment. That is really zooming in on a moment and describing it using vivid adjectives, using those words that create that type of imagery, or a summary that makes one think about what your story is going to be about. You can also use repeated lines or repetition to create some sense of excitement, or also finally using dialogue. So these are a number of strategies that we're going to kind of play around with in class to write our first opening for our narrative. So you might want to begin to think about how you could frame that in your narrative. All right, so these are some other points that we're going to be looking at this year. So one, we're going to be putting our stories in order that will make sense to the reader. We're going to create some bold beginnings. So really pulling our reader in, really grabbing their attention with some of those strategies we've talked about. We're going to look at creating some mighty middles, so making sure that our stories don't kind of lull people to sleep, but it keeps them engaged and wondering what's going to happen next. And then having those excellent endings, really pulling it all together and making someone go, wow, that was a real good story. Because I really hate going to the movies and watching a great movie and the ending is just the worst. So we want to make sure we have some excellent endings. Then we're going to use some thoughtful transition words to clearly show how our ideas connect. And lastly, we want to make sure our stories flow smoothly. All right, so this is kind of our theme for our narrative. It's going to be Apocalypse 2020. So our narrative this year will focus in on an apocalyptic event that you will create in your narrative. So what I really want you to begin to think about is how the world will end in 2020. Would it be a zombie invasion? Would it be a natural disaster? Will it be because of war or disease or pollution or even famine? So tomorrow we're going to begin writing our opening using some of the strategies in this video to create our awesome openings to pull our readers in to the video. All right, so that kind of concludes our discussion here for organization. Use these notes to go back over organization if need be, and we'll apply this to our narrative later. Oh, one more thing. The Easter egg. So if you stuck around for this last ending and you didn't cut it off, here's the Easter egg. So if you notice, if you paid attention, I had Easter eggs in the video. What you have to do to get the bonus points is tell me how many Easter eggs were there in total and put that answer in your, when you turn in your video, put that answer in your Edmodo box. Hope you paid attention.